All right, we're back with the money perspective. My name is Brandon,
I'm Eduardo.
and today we're talking about a really interesting subject, or one that I found interesting after watching this video that talked about the difference between millions, billions, and trillions. And I found it fascinating because it just got my mind thinking about, I think basically how we kind of suck at understanding really large numbers.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to share a couple of things, but before getting into that, it was this concept that like we suck with large numbers, and because of that, we kind of just lump them all together in the like a large number category. So for instance, like I think you and I were talking about this yesterday, but I gave the example that we talk about like millionaires and billionaires in the same breath. Like they're just rich people.
They're just rich people?
Or even if you earn over six figures, I think you said it was like 300,000 a year or something, or maybe it's a little bit more, a little bit less, I'm not sure, is like considered the 1%, the top 1%.
Something like that. Maybe we should look up the figure, but somewhere around there.
Well, so the idea though is that those three categories of people, right? That person that's just making that above that threshold, and then the millionaire and then the billionaire are all considered just your 1%, your rich person, but they're astronomically different numbers.
Exactly.
Like
Google says California, in this state, the top 1% earn $745,000 annually.
Dang, okay. So that's a lot more than we thought, but even then, I think it's still, for sure, the idea still applies.
If you're earning $300,000 a year, idea might still apply.
Yes. And how different it is from millions and billions and all that stuff. So one of the first things that I wanted to share was a video that to me, this is the first thing that kind of caught my attention, and I think highlights really well like what the differences are. And you might have seen it. It was a really popular, I think it started on TikTok. Right? So I'll play just a little bit of it.
Was 100K. Like, look how big this is, guys. I'm gonna show you the scale.
That is a mound.
Put a keyboard in just for fun.
Oh my god.
Yes, actually, okay, so that's starting from the middle.
The scale of $1 billion is really crazy. So let's say 1 grain of rice is equivalent to 100K, and 10 grains of rice would be then 1 million. Well, how much is a billion? So my Saturday night consisted of counting 1,000 grains of rice, one by
Fucking
one.
11
Just to show you
hours,
guys how
dude.
much $1 billion is. Of course, I felt
I didn't even
like
realize
time
it's
last
taken
year.
him
This
11
is
hours.
playing at, I don't even know. God knows how fast it's playing at. But so now I'm proud to present to you the results.
That's 1 million.
That is $1 billion, where each grain of rice is worth 100K. Look how much rice is.
So
The scale.
in this video, for people that can't see, he's counting grains of rice and he's considering one single grain as $100,000.
A grain of rice, a real grain of rice, which is that small.
Yeah, it's tiny, right? And then it took him 11 hours, more than 11 hours, to count out $1 billion, I think it was.
Yeah.
So if 1 grain of rice is 100,000, then you've obviously got 10 grains of rice to equal 1 million.
Right.
And so you can imagine 10 single grains of rice in your hand. That's $1 million on this scale, right? But then it gets crazy because he's counting all of these grains of rice, and then he gets to this part where he's showing you 1 billion grains of rice, and it's like 2 handfuls.
Right.
It's 2 handfuls. So like you and I, most people, $1 million is like, that's a lot of money.
Right.
Right? If somebody just dumped $1 million of cash into your hands, or 10 grains of rice, let's say that was our currency, they just put 10 grains of rice in your hand, you'd be like over the moon.
Right.
Right? It's not going to retire you right away, but that's a life-changing amount of money for sure. And you can do a lot of things with that to retire yourself into the future, right? Like invest it and it'll grow really quickly, and so it's a life-changing amount. But then 1 billion, dude, is basically 2 handfuls of money.
Yeah.
So you think about it, and actually I think he does show this in the video. I won't play the whole thing because it'll take forever, but he does pull aside a couple of grains of rice, 3 grains, and says this is a Lamborghini right here.
Right.
Right?
300 grand.
Yeah, about 300 grand. And then I will play this little next snippet.
Notice it was gone. Here's a $5 million house in California. And oh, look, I still have all this money. Well, a lot of you guys
Okay, so he took that $1 billion. He took out the Lamborghini, and in the pile that he had of $1 billion that would fit in two hands.
Yeah.
Probably, maybe even more than two hands, to be honest. You obviously don't notice it's gone.
Yeah.
That $5 million house that he just mentioned, still don't notice it's gone. And then the wild thing is in the rest of the video, he says he goes to like Costco or something and buys bags of rice because he counted $1 billion. It took him like 12 hours to count $1 billion grains. But then he goes on to count out the net worth of Jeff Bezos, at least at the time that this was made, which was $122 billion. And
Quite a while ago.
yeah. So he does that and then shows you the scale, and you've got that $1 billion worth of rice. Probably takes about 2 handfuls, maybe more, to hold all of that rice. And then he goes on to Jeff Bezos's net worth. Basically, he needed a tarp.
Oh my God.
Like a tarp that you would put under your tent when you're camping or something. Like he had to have that. And then there's a giant mound that sits on it. And later I think you actually saw it too, he puts like a regular sized keyboard and sticks it in there to show the depth of like how deep the keyboard sinks into that mound.
Right.
And it gets like 75% up to the top of the keyboard.
Oh my God.
So you look at that and it's just wild to think like, yeah, a car, a house, a jet, a yacht,
No
like
problem
50
there.
of those things.
Right.
And it's like, oh, the pile didn't change. There's no difference in the pile. Unless you told me that you did that, I wouldn't have known. You could have stolen those grains of rice and we wouldn't have known. So it's wild, man. It's wild, like, when you start looking at it that way.
It is super wild.
It also made me think, too, about... I kind of used to be... Well, I still am to a degree. I used to be very judgmental of people that would, buy 5 houses.
Yeah.
Or they would spend, $50,000 on a watch or $3 million on some supercar or something. And I personally wouldn't buy those things. At least I don't think I would if I had all of that money. But I kind of get why people are more inclined to do that after seeing something like this. Because to you and I, to spend $3 million on a car, or even like $300,000 on a car, is insane. Like that's a really freaking expensive car.
That's a really expensive car. And I think that I'm also of the thought that a lot of these purchases are to be able to write it off.
Yeah.
Right? So, what's that super popular box car? It's some Mercedes G-Wagon.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of these like businesses that are started on TikTok, right? Oftentimes the creators are now driving around in a G-Wagon and stuff like that. But it's because, to the regular person that doesn't make that amount of money, it seems like, oh yeah, they obviously they can afford a big car and huge and stuff. But to the creator is, well, sure, I spent all this money, but it's a business expense. And because if I don't spend this money, I'm going to get taxed on it anyway. Right. So if I make a business purchase, I don't get charged for it, I'm going to make the business purchase.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I don't know what the nuances are about what can and can't be a business expense, but I do know people do things like that.
Yeah, it's by weight. I think that car meets the threshold of weight. So they're able to write it off.
What if can you do like more than one?
I don't know.
Because at what point would the IRS say like, nah, dude, that's not for business. That's like your personal car.
Well, some people would argue that it is for business because some TikTokers have to keep up the appearance.
I have heard of that, yeah. I have heard of that. Like it's business because you wouldn't get new business if people didn't, you didn't give off that image.
Right.
Which, again, I don't know the details of that, but
it's the reason I'm able to write off. Maybe we shouldn't say this on video. Is the reason I'm able to write off, manicures and pedicures is because what I do for work, I have to present myself in front of people, So I think in just any genre of work, there's different things.
Yeah, and the idea is taken too, which is just that it's in that sense it's not comparing apples to apples, right? It's like if you have a business, if you have a certain base level of knowledge with money and investments, business, taxes, you're not making purchases like the average person makes a purchase, which is like I use my credit card or I use cash and I go into the store and I buy something. Like
Yeah.
this is thinking about, how to write things off, how to play by different rules, use
Yeah.
the tax code to your advantage, that type of stuff. But even if this hypothetical person, rich person, were to just buy purely in cash,
Yeah.
not do any business expenses, nothing like that. The point is that it still like doesn't even touch what they're worth.
Right.
Right?
It still doesn't take away from this mound of rice,
Yeah. And I should point out too, maybe a lot of people are thinking this, but there's a whole nother set of rules too in the sense that like $122 billion at the time that this was recorded for Jeff Bezos is not like he doesn't have $122 billion of cash sitting in a vault somewhere. That's tied up in Amazon stock.
Right.
And I don't even know if it's feasible or legally possible, to be honest. If he wanted that cash to put in a vault and just have, I don't think it's even possible for him to just liquidate all of it and have it there waiting for him in cash. He has
I wonder if
ownership of a company. He'd probably have to go through this huge process of selling the company, selling all his shares.
I would imagine the company would go broke as well, right? But I mean, just that concept itself is a good question. Like, can you take that investment in Amazon and literally turn it into a mound of cash? Can we do that? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I would doubt that you could do the whole amount of cash.
Yeah.
You could definitely take out a freaking insane amount,
Right.
liquidate that. I mean, I think Elon Musk recently liquidated a bunch of stock to buy Twitter, right? It's like that was basically a taxable event. He liquidated that. I don't know how much he had to pay in taxes or how that works exactly because he rolled it over into buying a company, but he was able to do that. And I'm pretty sure he at least partially did that with Tesla stock and then got outside investors and other things. But anyways, yeah, it's insane. And it's not, all of that isn't just tied up in cash is the point. But so that was like a good opening.
Yeah.
I think that video went viral a while ago, but I was also reading this article and I wanted to share some of the things that I found on it.
Okay.
In this article, there was a quote that says, prior to the advent of a formal numbering system, early humans only really needed to get a basic sense of small batches of quantities, like the number of people in the clan or how many animals might occupy a certain area. These days, however, we're surrounded by large numbers, like stupid large numbers. We're told that there are 7 billion humans on Earth, that there are 300 billion stars in the Milky Way, and that there may be upwards of 70 sextillion stars in the universe. Good luck trying to wrap your head around what such a quantity actually means or signifies.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's kind of like what we just talked about in the opening, where it's like, what is sextillion? And 70 sextillion. Like your brain automatically just says that's a freaking bunch of stars.
Costco's gonna run out of rice, is what that is. Right?
Yeah, no, there's not enough rice available in the galaxy for that. It's insane. It's just, but we do talk about these numbers all the time.
Yeah.
7 billion people on Earth, billions of dollars. I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson that once, I'm sure multiple people have said this, but he had said that the first trillionaire is going to be someone that mines an asteroid
Yeah.
and gets the precious metals from it.
Super crazy.
Here's another one. So this says it's a million versus a billion versus a trillion, right?
Yeah.
So a million seconds ago. First of all, do you have an idea of how long ago that was?
No.
Do you have a guess?
I was gonna look it up, but I guess
Yeah.
1 million seconds ago.
Yeah.
I mean, if 60 seconds is a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. I have no idea how much a million seconds ago is.
Yeah, right. I just wanted to ask you that because that I think already highlights the idea that like a million, I don't know.
Yeah. My
You're
God.
kind of just taking a shot in the dark. So it's 12 days ago.
12 days ago.
Yeah.
My goodness.
So a million seconds ago you could probably ask yourself, like, what was I doing a million seconds ago?
I have no idea what I was
Right.
doing.
And you wouldn't get it down to the second probably, but you could say, okay, 12 days ago, I went to my sister's wedding. Right? That was over a week ago. So that's what I was doing a million seconds ago. But now you get into billion seconds. So what is billions of 1 billion seconds ago?
Well, if a million seconds is 12 days, that you said billion,
Yeah.
it has to be 300 days.
Close. A billion seconds ago was actually 32 years.
32 years.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
32 years.
That was really close.
So a million seconds ago, you could say, oh yeah, I went to my sister's wedding.
Yeah.
That was a week and a half ago or so. A billion seconds ago, dude, you weren't even born.
I wasn't even born yet.
Yeah. You
Damn.
were, I don't think you were.
I wasn't even a thought then.
Yeah, I don't think you were a thought yet.
That's so crazy.
You were being cooked up somewhere, but
Somewhere.
yeah, you were being, at least half of you was being cooked up.
Damn. That is a lot.
Then a trillion seconds ago. I'm just going to say it because like, there's no way we're going to get it. So a million
Please.
seconds ago is 12 days. A billion seconds, 32 years. A trillion seconds ago is 32,000 years.
32,000 years.
Yeah.
Damn.
Which I don't know what was going on 32,000 years ago, but that's a long time.
It's a very long time.
So yeah, I think that just kind of like puts things into perspective. Days versus years versus thousands, tens of thousands of years.
Right.
So again, it highlights that idea that it's crazy to lump all of those things into the same sentence.
I have a question for you. Thinking about these numbers in the money perspective, right? You think there's a quantity that Brandon will be happy with? Like, do you want to say, I make 300 grand a year. I'm fine. I don't need to hit the $1 million a year. Do you go 1.5 a year and say, I'm happy here? Or does Brandon want to just keep building?
I definitely don't want to just keep building. I was actually going to talk about this a little bit later, but I did pull up the Forbes billionaire list, like the richest people.
Okay.
And I've heard people say, like, not people I know, but I've heard other people say, like, I want to be on that list. Like, my dream is I want to be, like, within breaking that 50 most wealthiest people in the world. And I thought about that. I'm like, why? Who would want that? You want to be on the top 50 Forbes billionaire list? Like, why? That's such a weird thing. Like, that's what's going to make me happy, or like that's going to be mission accomplished. It's like, dude, that's a lifetimes and lifetimes worth of wealth. Like, I get if maybe your mindset is like, I just want to shoot for the stars and like make my dreams as big as possible. But man, it's such a weird dream to even get wrapped up in.
Yeah.
Because it's so unnecessary to me, anyways. So to answer your question, like, no, I would not want to keep building because, like, what for? I don't have any kind of aspiration to like, oh, I want to build a legacy and I want humankind to remember my name. Because on a long enough scale, you can be freaking Einstein. People aren't going to remember your name. But as humans, we just think in our little bubble of knowledge, and we think, oh, if I do something really great, you're going to hear my name 100 years from now. It's like, yeah, but 100 years? Dude, the universe is billions of years old. Like, your name's going to be forgotten, dude.
Yeah.
And at some point, we're probably all going to be wiped out. There won't be any human life. Like, who the fuck cares? You know?
Just to play devil's advocate here, right? You travel. Don't spit on my laptop, please. You travel and have seen poverty outside of the United States. There's poverty in the U.S. No disrespect to those suffering from poverty in the United States. Been there myself. But there's parts of this world. You've been to Thailand, for example, and told me some stories of some of the things you saw out there. Did you ever want to help these people? Did you ever want to help them and say, if I just give them $20, 20 American dollars, this can change their entire week?
Yeah. I don't necessarily know if I was handing out money in Thailand, but I've raised money for people in Haiti, like individual people, simply to help them and their family, to help because, and specifically one person was just to help them because they were like a young kid. Another person was not only helping them and their family because he was a father or is a father, but also because he's a leader in his community, like at school and church. So helping him helps him help other people.
Right.
So yeah, I've definitely had that desire.
Nice. And so, isn't it safe to say that present day Brandon doesn't want to keep building? Is it safe to say then that, say Brandon was making $2 million a year, right? Is it safe to say that that $2 million Brandon is a different Brandon than the one that's sitting here right now?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And do you think that Brandon wants to keep building?
I would hope not. And actually, well, the nuance there is like, what does that mean to keep building, right?
Okay.
Like, because I do see that if I was making $2 million a year, the rate at which I could grow that money versus making tens of thousands a year is like exponential, right? The knowledge that I probably have, the resources that I have, like I can reach at that point, is like to grow that 2 million into something bigger is probably way easier. In fact, I was just listening to a podcast by Lewis Howes, I think is his name.
Okay.
It's a really big podcast. I should know his name, but he was being interviewed on somebody else's podcast actually, and he was talking about the idea of growing wealth and how it was much harder for him to make his first $100,000 than it was for him to make his first $1 million.
Wow. I guess there is an old saying is the second million is the easiest.
Yeah, and so to that effect, like maybe that $2 million Brandon is like, I want to build because I know how to build now, and I have the ability to build easier.
Right.
So yes, but I do say it's nuanced because I don't ever want to be somebody that's like, I can't bring myself back down to earth. And it's like, I just got to keep building because like the whole point of life is I got to just keep building, you know?
I could see that. I could see that a lot, actually. I feel like I want to build. I do. I think I've always felt that way. But it's because I want to continue building for me, for my family, but also at some point I want to build to be able to give back, just like George did. And I think there's a lot to be learned from that experience of giving back now.
Mm-hmm. That idea is really interesting to me too, because I love it. Like I want to be able to give back. And there's like an infinite number of ways to do that, right? So another podcast that I was listening to was interviewing Tony Robbins, big motivational speaker. And he was talking about coming from poverty and now being able to feed like millions of people meals and doing a bunch of charity work and whatnot. And I think that's fantastic. Like to be able to help people at scale is really awesome. But one thing that it got me thinking about too was that is awesome and it's needed because we do need to scale things, right? There's a lot of people that are in poverty, a lot of people that could be served by having somebody help them out just a little bit, But at the same time that's true, to get wrapped up in scale is like, I got to help more people. It's just bigger's better, right? Like, let's help more people. Let's help more people. My mind is focused on like more people. As awesome as that is and as unique as that is, because not everybody can do that, I don't ever want my mind to lose sight of the fact that helping people at scale by like throwing money at some kind of issue is wonderful. But looking at somebody's face, like eye to eye, and actually knowing their name and having a rapport and a relationship with them, where it's like you can call them every month, or maybe you check up on them once a year, you've met each other's families, you live in the same geographical area, and you help that one person. That's not your family, by the way. I would say that's its own unique thing. It's like everybody wants to look out for their family, but just a person, who otherwise would be a stranger. Like how impactful was it that George, instead of thinking about scale, he's like, I'm going to just think about solidifying my relationship with Eduardo, right? Forget the scale for a minute, because he definitely can scale things.
Yeah.
I don't want him to just be a number in that scaling. I want Eduardo to be like, dude, we're connected now. You know?
Makes sense.
So I think that's really important. I definitely want to keep sight of that. I want to go back to this article that I was reading.
Yeah, please.
That there were a couple of other points that I thought were really interesting. One was that in this article, someone estimated that if the growth rate of wealth over the past 30 years, like the rate in which we've seen people get wealthy and enter into the $1 million range, the $1 billion range, if that trajectory keeps its pace, this person estimates that a $1 trillion fortune will show up before the year 2040.
Oh,
So we're not that far from that.
yeah.
And that would be insane. We would have millionaires, billionaires, and we would have trillionaires. If we don't already have trillionaires already, I don't know.
I mean, there's
its
some
own-
countries that don't have to tell us, you know?
Yeah, actually, that was one of the things that I pulled up. So, one, I pulled up the billionaire 50 list on Forbes, right? Elon Musk is there. He's not even the top right now. I don't know when this happened, but some other guy. Bernard Arnault is now the richest person in the world.
Who is that?
He owns brands like Sephora, Louis Vuitton, Tiffany & Co., a lot of luxury brands. Christian Dior. Says his father made a small fortune in construction, and then he got his start by putting $15 million to buy Christian Dior in 1985.
85.
Yeah.
Wow.
So snowballed since then. But anyway, so yeah, he's officially the world's richest person, at least for now. And I say officially because that's, it's on Forbes, but there's a lot of people, as some of us may know, that we have no idea how much wealth they actually have.
Right.
Because a lot of it's not through legal means, or it's hidden in ways that we can't estimate. So I pulled up this other article that says, "Forget Forbes billionaire list. Here are the real world's richest people."
Okay.
And on this list, you've got Kim Jong-un from North Korea, dictator from North Korea. And granted, I have no idea how valid these are.
Yeah.
I think these estimates come from just like kind of looking at what these people control and what they have access to. But there's not really a firm way to estimate these things. So yeah, this guy, dictator of North Korea, it says presides over one of the world's poorest nations. So that's sad.
I was going to say, like, I don't know how much money you can make in North Korea. Like,
Well, so on this, the reason he's on there is they talk about his country's GDP. So like how much output his country makes in terms of, I don't know what they sell necessarily. That'd be kind of interesting to research. Like how does North Korea sustain itself?
yeah.
Usually countries export something, right? To make money. And so regardless, like he's a dictator over his country. He has access to everything. He's the supreme leader. His picture's in, like, as far as I've seen, like every classroom, people pray to the guy. People like faint when they meet him or like get close enough to even see him. He's like a god.
Right.
So he has access to whatever he wants, basically. Then you've got a sultan from, I don't know if what does it say here? Hassan al-Bolkiah, Sultan of Brunei. Brunei or Brunei? I don't know. It's a country. Sorry for that ignorance, but...
You want to put it up?
Sure. Yeah, I can throw it up on the screen here.
Oh, yeah. This guy's, yeah, I believe this one.
Mohammed bin Salman, Saudi crown prince. This even says the $1 trillion man. So it's the idea that like maybe people do already have trillions of dollars, if not themselves, like within their families.
Right.
Vladimir Putin. Yeah, basically control over Russia, which is obviously a big exporter of oil.
Right.
That's a big talking point now. And then lastly, the Queen of England.
Yeah.
Just how much wealth is in the family over generations and generations. So talking about wealth for a second, this other part that I found says that 9.2% of the world's population, which is, according to this, over twice the population of the United States. So imagine everybody in the United States double that number, and put all of those people in a room. All of those people make less than $2 a day.
Oh my God.
Less than 2 a day.
Gosh darn it. That is a terrible thought.
Yeah, so I mean, I used a calculator for this, but 2, and it's less than this, right? But let's just round it up to 2 times 365 days a year, which you may or may not be working every single day of the year. That means you're making $730 a year. A year, dude.
That doesn't even pay the rent for this apartment for a
No,
month.
bro, it's insane,
God.
right? And that's insane for us, and we're like an average person
Yeah.
just making a living. You know, we're not yet multimillionaires. Definitely not billionaires.
My God.
So even to us, that's like insane how low that is.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're just that average person. So
Where was that, by the way?
where was this article, or where was it was this article? I think it was this quote came from medium.com, which they got it from somebody else.
It's always like that.
Yeah. I didn't copy and paste it into this little notepad that I have. You know, I'm sure you could dig around the internet and verify things, but even if the numbers aren't exact, like they don't even have to be. It could, instead of being double the U.S. population that makes this amount, it could be just the U.S. population that makes this amount, and it's still like insane.
It's still
to think,
a lot. Yeah.
right? And then there's a little note that says COVID-19 estimated to add up to 115 million people to this total. So like, yeah, expanding that number of people that make less than $2 a day. Let's see here. A couple other things. This photo is from that article. Puts into perspective again, million versus billion.
Yeah.
So you can see a person standing there with 1,000,000 pennies, and it's like a small wall standing next to them. A wall that you can easily just walk around. It's not quite as tall as your head. And then you've got 1,000,000,000 pennies, and it's like a person standing in front of 4 apartment buildings.
Right.
Like huge apartment buildings and a bus next to it.
So crazy.
And then lastly, there's this 50,000 is like one little pixel on a screen. 1,000,000, it's showing all these pixels, and then 1,000,000,000 is like,
These many pixels.
yeah, a quarter of the page. So, yeah, it's just, I think it's crazy to kind of put those things into perspective. Another thing that, I forgot who was talking about this, but I know I was talking about this with my mom recently. And, you know, not to get political, but we were talking about politics at the time, me and my mom. Because there was this idea that, you know, people, again, I don't want this to get political, so I'll just be neutral, right? But there was this idea that some people that were running for positions of power were seen as like the go-to person because they were a billionaire. And people were like, well, this person's really smart because they've got so much money. It means they're good with business because they're so wealthy. And at the same time that you'd be saying that, those same people would be saying like, this is our guy. Like he's going to fight for every man, every woman. He's going to be the one that helps out our economy, the people that are struggling, the people that are losing their jobs. Like he's going to help us all out, right? Like he understands he's not the establishment. And so we trust him.
Right.
Because he's not the establishment, he's going to fight for us, right? And I don't know who said this, but it was a fantastic freaking point, which was for the average person, you are, based on all this, right? Like scale and like what 1,000,000 versus 1,000,000,000, trillion, all of that stuff, like the differences between it. They said that you have so much more in common with the homeless person that's down your street than any freaking billionaire. Right? A homeless person, like you're one bad medical situation away from being that homeless person. A billionaire, dude, like we've already discussed how 1,000,000,000 is like mind-blowingly more than 1,000,000. It's like those 10 grains of rice versus a tarp with a mound of rice on it.
Right.
You're way closer to having 0 grains of rice than having that freaking mound.
Got it.
And it blows my mind that, like, sure, on policy, like, let's argue about policy or whatever, but it blows my mind when people say, like, he's our guy, he's our champion because he's so rich. Like, it proves that he's got this connection to business, and that proves that he's going to then help us.
I can see that.
And it's like, you already asked me, is $2 million Brandon different than current Brandon? My answer was like, boom, yeah, of course. Like, and that's 2 million, dude. Is $122 billion Jeff Bezos a different mindset than $2 million Jeff Bezos? It's like, it's gotta be.
It's gotta be.
You know? When you can talk to the president anytime you want, probably. When the government would probably have an incentive to make sure your business stays in business because you could take down the economy if you went out of business.
And when a state is fighting for you to move to their state,
Yeah.
like
you're controlling it. You're basically controlling economies from the background,
it's incredible.
right?
It's incredible.
You have that impact. And so to think, like, I hate that argument. It's like, this person knows, this person relates to the everyman. It's like, no, bro.
No, he does not, dude.
Does not. And especially if they didn't even grow up poor. Like, that might be one thing if they became poor or they started out in poverty.
I mean, some would argue that that's what made Tony Robbins not become a billionaire, because he started focusing on the average man and giving back so much and you know stuff like that. And he does spend time on that kind of stuff. You know, I had the opportunity to go to one of his events, and
Yeah.
it's just great to hear about it. You know, but you do spend money on it.
Yeah.
And you do spend time and resources on it. You know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've always found him an inspiring figure too. I would go to an event.
I think
That'd be really
going back to your point, I think Dave Chappelle said it the funniest. You know, like he said he was in line in voting to vote at in Ohio where he lives, and he said he's in line with the tiki torch whites as he calls them, and there was a bunch of people like, oh yeah, Trump is gonna fight for us, you know, and he's like, no, dude, he's gonna fight for me, the rich people in the country. Like, what do you think? What makes you think he's gonna fight for you? I'm like, no, he's not. He's closer. He's gonna fight for the people that are closer to him, you know, which are not the poor, are not, you know, people in impoverished situations.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy to me, man. Like, again, politics aside, specific policies aside, to me it's like, I just don't see how people can completely trust, like, oh yeah, this person's gonna fight for me. Like, if you're gonna be open and minded enough to think like, oh, there's a swamp and like there's corruption, and like, be open minded enough to think exactly what you said. Like, doesn't this billionaire have every incentive to protect his fellow billionaires, and like, does he really have the incentive to like care about the person making 20 grand a year?
Right.
Like, he can't relate to that person.
Yeah.
Just like we can't relate to being a billionaire, you know? So it bugs me when people don't apply logic evenly. But anyways, the last things that I wanted to visit are also very interesting to me because it really brings it home and puts things into perspective. The way it was prompted is I saw a video from Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Okay.
This was made a few years back, and he was talking about doing a bit of math to figure out, like, how much does it take for Bill Gates to like stop and pick up money off of the street. And he gave this wonderful example of like, you and me, even him, Neil deGrasse Tyson, were saying, if you're walking down the street and you see a penny, unless you're superstitious and you think it's lucky, like, you're not going to pick it up. A nickel, you're not going to really bother with it. And in his example, he's like, if it's a dime, he's like, if I'm not in a hurry, I'll pick up the dime. A quarter, I'll pick it up every time.
Right.
Right? That was his example. So he started there saying, okay, 25 cents, that amount, I'm always going to reach down and pick it up. Right? Maybe for you it's $1, I don't know. But so he took that and kind of like extrapolated that based on his net worth, how much he owns versus like Bill Gates.
Okay.
And the result that he came up to was, if there was a pile of cash on the sidewalk of $45,000, that amount would be enough for Bill Gates to say, nah, that doesn't meet it. It doesn't meet my threshold. I'm too busy. I'm gonna keep walking. And he just leave that $45,000, basically leave that brand new car
Damn.
on the sidewalk and say, no, I don't want it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's an incredible thought. Did he give a number? Did he mathematically did he get to something?
That was his result. So the number that he came to was $45,000 would
Got
be like the equivalent of a quarter, or maybe no, 10 cents. I think it was. For
I
Bill
thought that was
Gates.
just an example.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So running off of that idea, I was kind of playing around with numbers myself, and my starting point was that the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics says that the median yearly income is $54,132. So roughly $50,000 a year is like, boom, that's the middle between the extremes.
Yeah.
Right? You've got billionaires, you've got people in poverty. About 50 grand a year is like dead center, pretty much. So I use that number. Like, let's assume we're that person making 54 grand a year. That is $1,041 a week. That's how much you take in a week, which of course is roughly $4,000 a month. Okay, so that's our starting place. We're thinking about somebody that's making $4,100 a month, $4,000 a month. And then I just started doing math, like, okay, if I picked up a quarter off the street, a quarter compared to my monthly income, that's 0.006% of my income is that little quarter.
Got it.
It's like minuscule, right? $100 is 2.4% of my monthly income, right?
Got it.
Another, to kind of solidify that perspective, you're making $4,100 a month. Roughly $2,000 is half of your monthly income, 50%, right? So just playing with percentages. Then I pulled up Elon Musk, and one estimate that I got, this is also very hard to calculate, but this person estimated a monthly income of $200 million.
Dang.
Right? So you got one person making $4,000 a month, this person making $200 million a month. Even if that number is wrong, let's just explore these big numbers, right? So a Tesla Model S Plaid is the most expensive Tesla that they offer.
Yes, sir.
And it's $130,000. $130,000 divided by 200 million, which is the amount he's making a month, is 0.065% of his monthly income. Now, I did all the numbers for us, that person that's making $4,000 a month. On our scale, with the person making 50 grand a year, that would fall in right around here. So for Elon Musk, buying the most expensive Tesla that he makes, that his company makes, is like spending $3. To him, that's what it feels like. Like, think about the last thing that you bought that was $3 and like what kind of decision that was for you.
Right.
Right? It's like, yeah, I'm hungry. I'm going to get those Cheetos. Right? I'm going to get that drink at the gas station.
Right.
Why not? Sometimes you'd be like, maybe I should try to save money and like not buy frivolous things. But then sometimes you're just impulse buying and like, yeah, let me just do it.
Right.
That's buying a freaking
Tesla
Tesla
for him.
for this guy. Like, I mean, yeah, let me just do it. I'm feeling hungry.
I'm passing
for
by
a new
the
car
Tesla
today.
dealership.
Yeah.
Pick one up on the way. Daniel, that is such a huge scale.
And then I did that for $5 million because on one of these videos they talked about buying like a $5 million home. I think it was that TikTok video that we saw in the first part, which for Elon Musk's monthly income is 2.5% of his monthly income. And on our scale, 2.5% is $10. For us, $10 is 2.5% of our monthly income, roughly, right? So a $5 million mansion is, for him, it feels like spending $10, right? Like, yeah, I'll break a 20 for that.
I'll break a 20
Why
for
not?
that.
Let's do that.
The house on the freaking hill.
Yeah. You know, you got a bunch of 20s in your wallet. You're like, yeah,
Fuck
this
it,
is just
let's go.
my cash. I don't carry a lot of cash, but I have a few 20s today. You know, I'll buy, dude, $10 is like not even a meal at a restaurant, actually,
No.
now that I think about it. So if you ever feel like going out with your friends to have food and a drink, that's what it's like to buy a $5 million mansion.
You just bought a mansion.
Yeah. Dang, it's freaking crazy.
It is super crazy.
Now, this is extreme, right? And again, Elon Musk's wealth is tied into his company. I think he makes a salary as a Tesla employee, but I don't think he takes it because it's so small.
It's $10.
Well, it's not
Yeah.
this. It's not the 200 million. It's some other amount that he doesn't actually take. But it's hard to estimate right? What his monthly income is. So I pulled up somebody that's a little bit more down to earth, just a little bit more. So Steph Curry, highest paid basketball player in the NBA,
Oh wow.
makes more than LeBron James, and his yearly salary is roughly $48 million. That's not including sponsorships, endorsements, commercials, whatever.
Oh, that's
Any businesses that he opened up, investments that he has. That's just what the NBA pays him to play a season.
right.
$48 million, right? So then I kind of took the same concept and said, like, okay, $100,000. He wants to buy a $100,000 car, something like that. What is that compared to his? Well, actually, this was his yearly, so I should divide that by 12. Let's do that right now. Equals times 100, 2.5%. So this should be, that second line should be 2.5%. So buying a $100,000 car for him is like spending $100 for us.
Steph Curry, Elon Musk, should buy me a Tesla.
Serious. And then at his rate, just what the NBA is paying him, if he wanted to become a billionaire, he didn't have any other investments, no other endorsements, just got his salary from the NBA. It'd take him 20.8 years to become a billionaire. It's a long time.
Yeah.
It's a career. I don't know if the NBA careers last that long, but for most people, it's definitely a career, 20 years. And then to become a trillionaire at that rate, he'd take 20,000 years.
He could live that long.
Yeah. Those were just thrown down there to, again, emphasize how big of a difference a billion versus a trillion is.
Yeah.
You can make $1 billion at his rate in a lifetime easily. But a trillion is like, no, that's a chunk of human history right there
Right.
to make that.
My gosh. It's, again, I love that thought. It's because it's great to just put it in perspective, you know. I mean, just those grains of rice, just to see the huge mound that was on that tarp, you know. Gotta love it, man. Gotta love it.
Yeah, I thought it was super interesting, especially just putting into perspective like how much it costs, or not how much it costs, like how it feels for somebody that has a lot of money to buy something that we would consider very expensive,
Sure.
right? So again, like that, buying that Tesla is like spending three freaking dollars. That's what it feels like.
That's what it feels like.
Crazy. But yeah, anyway, so I wanted to share that. I thought that was a fun topic. I think about this a lot because, we made this podcast because we're interested in money. We do want to grow our wealth. We want to be wealthy. I think you would agree. There's a lot you can do with more resources, money being the principal resource that we're talking about here. But on that journey, I think it's important to keep money in different perspectives, or look at it from different perspectives.
Right.
Because I'm sure you've heard this, but money is definitely no guarantee that you're going to be happy, right? As Gary Vaynerchuk says it, he's like, I know plenty of billionaires that are freaking miserable, that don't want to be here, that hate their lives. So it's obviously not the only thing that matters. So just want to keep things in perspective.
For real. Well, this has been The Money Perspective. I'm Eduardo.
And I'm Brandon.
Till next time.
See ya.